You may know Jeff Bezos as the CEO of Amazon, the massive tech conglomerate that has taken over the globe, and maybe even your house if you own an Alexa-powered smart speaker. But did you know that the Amazon CEO is the richest man on the globe? He's been described by Forbes as being far richer than anyone else on the planet. That's an impressive feat in and of itself, but it gets even more incredible when you factor in that he's the richest person on the planet after his divorce, where his ex-wife Mackenzie Tuttle was awarded 25% of Bezos' Amazon shares. And perhaps even more incredibly, the shares awarded to Tuttle are now worth around $48.5 billion, which makes the ex-wife of the multi-billionaire the third richest woman on the planet, and a multi-billionaire herself. While we're on the subject of Amazon, did you know that the website's original purpose was to sell books? Amazon saw huge success as a bookseller all the way back in 1994, and the decision was made to expand the site into the massive online marketplace that we see before us today. Much like his billionaire counterparts Richard Branson and Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos is passionate about space travel. He started his own human spaceflight startup company called Blue Origin in the year 2000, and it continues to this day. Bezos is extremely passionate about Blue Origin and the preservation of Earth's resources, so much so that he sells off $1 billion of his stock in Amazon each year to facilitate the continuing endeavor to colonize the solar system. Bezos plans on partially funding these spaceflight operations by offering commercial spaceflights to a few lucky passengers that are willing and able to shell out the massive $200,000 to $300,000 per ticket. The end goal of Blue Origin, according to Jeff Bezos himself, is to get all people off the Earth and see it turned into a huge national park, which is both admirable and maybe just a little bit crazy at the same time. Jeff Bezos' fascination with space travel isn't just limited to future adventures into the great unknown. He's also a bit of a history buff, and in 2013 he spent a bit of his massive stockpile to fund an expedition to recover 2 Saturn V rocket engines from the floor of the Atlantic Ocean. These 2 engines belong to the Apollo 11 mission that was launched in July of 1969, and they had laid in the briny ocean depths ever since. Bezos' rescue mission was a great success, and now one of the engines is on display in the Seattle Museum of Flight. Bezos has spent some of his ridiculously large stash of cash on more companies, for what we can only assume is for the purposes of world domination. Or maybe, when you're that rich, there's just nothing better to spend all that dough on. In 2013, Jeff Bezos purchased the most circulated newspaper in the DC metropolitan area, the Washington Post. The purchase cost Bezos a colossal $250 million, which is really a drop in the bucket considering his enormous wealth. Before Jeff Bezos acquired the Washington Post, the paper was struggling due to its flawed online presence. The Amazon CEO brought his intimate knowledge of e-commerce into the picture, and has since made the once floundering paper profitable. This increase in profitability was partly due to Bezos insisting that the paper's website remove the paywall that kept users from reading the articles for free. Bezos tends to use his money to make more money by investing. He was an early investor of a little-known company called Google, all the way back in 1998. Bezos purchased a whopping 3.3 million shares of Google stock, which only cost him $250,000 at that time. That investment proved to be a very lucrative one, and that initial investment has ballooned to a value of almost $4.5 billion as of this writing. The investments don't stop there, however. Bezos seems to have an infatuation with science fiction, which certainly influenced his investment in the life extension research firm Unity Biotechnology. This firm was established to, believe it or not, try to slow or completely stop the aging process. Perhaps most intriguing is that they've been somewhat successful at it, and are currently developing drugs to treat osteoarthritis in the knee and degenerative eye issues. While that's not exactly stopping the aging process entirely, it's at least a start. If all those eccentric science fiction investments had you worried about Bezos' supervillain potential, worry not. His latest business venture seems to point to the Amazon CEO as being a pretty nice person behind that stoic facade. It's called Haven Healthcare, and it was created with the goal of improving America's healthcare services while simultaneously reducing the cost of both medical care and prescription medications. This company was a joint venture between Amazon, Berkshire Hathaway, and JP Morgan Chase, and may be one of the only things that Jeff Bezos has done that can be considered not-for-profit. One of the things that is most commonly attributed to Jeff Bezos is the fact that despite his billionaire status, he still drove a Honda Accord as of 2013, and presumably still does. There's not a whole lot to say about this purchase, really. Bezos himself didn't have much to say either. During an interview with 60 Minutes, Bezos said, "There's nothing wrong with this car." Ironically, while his ground-based transportation remains pedestrian or maybe even dingy, his air-based transportation is the definition of luxury. It should come as no surprise that Jeff Bezos doesn't fly public. Instead, he flies in his luxurious Gulfstream G650ER private jet, which cost the billionaire businessman an earth-shattering $65 million. That would be enough to buy as many as 2,700 brand new 2020 Honda Accords, just in case you were curious. Bezos isn't very frugal about his real estate either. The billionaire CEO owns 5 properties across the US, and each one is quite a bit different than the next. One of these extremely expensive properties is in his Medina, Washington estate. This estate was purchased by Bezos in 1999 for $10 million, but that's not where the expenses end. The billionaire businessman had 2 houses built on this property, with one being a 20,600 square foot mansion with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, and the other being a smaller 8,300 square foot mansion with the same amount of beds and baths. These 2 homes cost Bezos around $53 million to construct, bringing the cost of the estate to $63 million. The property was treated to more renovations in 2010, which cost Bezos another $28 million, making the total money spent into this estate a mind-blowing $91 million. Jeff Bezos' real estate shopping spree doesn't end there. The richest man in the world flaunted some of his immense wealth by purchasing a gigantic 30,000-acre ranch in Texas. The original owner of this property had recently invested millions of dollars into renovations. Bezos scooped the property up, and it is now the headquarters of his spaceflight company, Blue Origin. To put the massive size of this property into some sort of perspective, Disney World is only 25,000 acres, and the popular South Carolina vacation destination Hilton Head Island is only 28,000 acres. Bezos also owns some property in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. The 27,000 square foot property that Jeff Bezos purchased is located in the Kalorama neighborhood that is home to many very important names in D.C., like the Obamas, Ivanka Trump, and Jared Kushner. The 2 joint structures are on the National Register of Historic Places, as they used to be a textile museum. The structure dates back to 1912 and is currently the largest home in Washington, D.C. Jeff Bezos seems attracted to some of America's most iconic locations. The Amazon bigwig owns 4 condos in Manhattan's historic Century Building. This massive apartment building located on New York City's Upper West Side overlooks the beautiful Central Park. The Century Building was constructed in 1931 and has since become a symbol of New York City's period of Art Deco architecture. Jeff Bezos initially purchased 3 of his 4 owned condos in the building in the year 1999, and it cost him over $7 million. Bezos wasn't satisfied with just 3 though, and in 2012 he bought an additional unit that cost him $5.3 million alone. That may be a massive price tag for these condos, but you have to consider the iconic location and luxurious amenities provided by the Century Building. The apartment building has a concierge, an elevator, and even elevator attendants. This seems like a worthwhile purchase if you have the money, and these condos barely put a dent in Jeff Bezos' massive net worth. With all of these assets owned by Jeff Bezos, you may be wondering what his net worth actually is. According to Forbes, Bezos is worth a staggering $141 billion. Even though he's worth so much money, Bezos seems more interested in growing his wealth than spending it. It is theorized that Amazon's continued growth and dominance of the e-commerce industry will propel Jeff Bezos to be the world's first trillionaire. Or perhaps Blue Origin's commercial space flights will take off and rocket the billionaire to trillionaire status. Only time will tell. So, if you had the Amazon CEO's bizarre fortune, what would you blow your money on? Let us know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We would really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.